The Donbas skies were silent that afternoon, before the sharp whir of FPV propellers sounded like a death whisper. From low altitude, a Ukrainian SIGNUM combat drone glided through the dust, hunting down any enemy that dared to show itself in the open ground. Below, Russian troops tried to move quickly, a lone red motorcycle rider speeding down a narrow road, hoping to break the UAV's line of sight. But his fate was sealed. In a split second, the drone dived with pinpoint accuracy, and the explosion struck hard, body, motorcycle, and ground merging in a burst of flames. Before the dust had settled, a Russian ATV appeared from the other direction, carrying two panicked infantrymen trying to cross the open ground. The SIGNUM operator, calm behind the monitor, locked onto the target, a single touch of the joystick, and the second drone shot up, slamming into the side of the vehicle. The brutal explosion shook the camera, leaving only the charred remains of the frame on the ground. But the hunt wasn't over. In the distance, two Russian soldiers could be seen walking into the open, seeking cover, perhaps hoping to escape SIGNUM's electronic eyes. But an FPV drone struck one of them, rendering them helpless. In a final attack, the SIGNUM drones hunted the fleeing troops into the forest undergrowth, and their eyes never blinked, as a third drone swooped down like a hawk spotting its prey. An instant later, flames erupted on the hilltop, engulfing the hapless climbers, along with their hopes for life. This attack is more than just a show of technological strength. Symbolizes the Ukrainian UAV forces' mastery of the terrain and their deadly precision. Every enemy move in the open ground was now suicidal. Only billows of smoke and shadows of destruction remained. A sign that on the Ukrainian front, every step of the invader was met with fiery justice. In the Pokrovsk direction, Donetsk Oblast, blowing up critical infrastructure to poison the battlefield, represented an unprecedented act of desperation. Yet, the gas only blocked ground reinforcements, while drone operators remained unaffected and decimated the relief column. Here, the Russians have just launched one of their largest and most disastrous assaults of the war, a desperate attempt to punch through Ukrainian lines and relieve their encircled forces. Their idea to catch the Ukrainians off guard failed, as Ukrainian units coordinated quickly to counter the threat. Geolocated footage from Ukrainian drones shows how they detected the first Russian motorcycle groups speeding toward Volodymyrivka and immediately unleashed their FPV drones. Geolocated footage shows the drones diving on the riders as they tried to zigzag across the muddy road. Some lost control, skidded into ditches, and were blown apart seconds later. Within minutes, the narrow route became clogged with burning motorcycles, an inferno that blocked the rest of the column. Ukrainian artillerymen, who had pre-marked the road, then opened fire. Shell after shell landed amid the wrecks, annihilating the next waves of riders. The armored vehicles that followed slowed to avoid the chaos ahead, as Ukrainian drones descended from above. The drones targeted the weakest spots of the armored personnel carriers, the tracks, wheels, and rear engine compartments, and one after another burst into flames. Infantry dismounted in panic, trying to find cover in the ruins of Volodymyrivka, only to be hunted down by more drones. Ukrainian operators dropped explosives directly into craters and foxholes, killing anyone still moving. Those who sought refuge in nearby structures were struck by heavy octocopters carrying large munitions. At the same time, other drones finished off the immobilized vehicles with precise strikes to ensure they couldn't be recovered later. The Russian assault involved 6 tanks, including one turtle tank, more than 40 armored personnel carriers and infantry fighting vehicles, over 40 motorcycles, and several hundred troops. Despite this unprecedented number of vehicles and soldiers, the scene quickly turned into another road of death. As the forward units disintegrated, vehicles at the rear tried to turn around, creating a massive jam that made them easy prey for artillery and more drones. Ukrainian reconnaissance confirmed that by nightfall, at least 3 Russian tanks, 16 armored vehicles, 41 motorcycles, and 2 additional cars had been destroyed. Preliminary reports counted more than 100 Russians dead and 50 wounded. Fighters from the Azov Brigade later reported that despite these losses, around 32 Russian infantrymen managed to dismount near Volodymyrivka, but 12 were killed almost instantly. The survivors hid in basements and debris, only for Ukrainian octocopters to drop heavy bombs on them through the night, and by dawn, there was no more movement in the settlement to be found. This massive assault was part of the Russian command's desperate plan to open a supply route to their trapped forces near Dobropilya. Following the earlier detonation of the ammonia pipeline near Rusin Yar, Russian commanders hoped to exploit the resulting confusion and threat. The toxic ammonia gas moved westwards, exactly towards the Ukrainian ground line of communication, putting Ukrainian soldiers under great danger. However, in practice, this only meant the Ukrainians could not quickly reinforce their presence in the town, while Ukrainian drone and artillery units remained unaffected and able to respond. In addition, the Russians assumed that the bad weather would prevent Ukrainians from using these drones. But as the footage shows, operators from several brigades and artillery crews coordinated perfectly and saved the day, turning the sky into a swarm of death for the Russian assault. Each unit complemented the others, and when a vehicle survived one strike, a second drone was already closing in. Overall, the Russian waves of assaults near Volodymyrivka will go down as one of their most catastrophic failures near Pokrovsk. Even after blowing up the pipeline in a reckless attempt to distract Ukrainian forces and poison them with an ammonia cloud, their massive push ended in destruction. The smoldering wrecks scattered across the fields testify to the futility of trying to overcome Ukrainian fortifications and drone dominance. With autumn rains turning the terrain into a swamp and Ukrainian engineers mining every approach, this may have been Russia's last major armored assault in this sector for the foreseeable future. Having lost dozens of vehicles and hundreds of troops, the Russians are now expected to revert once again to small-scale infantry infiltrations, sending poorly equipped soldiers to die where tanks and armor have